Do this. Our feature teller is someone each week that the Guild features that gives them a little bit of extra time to showcase their talents. And tonight we're excited to bring you Betty Ann Polaha. And she's from Pennsylvania. And she says that her grandparents on both sides were immigrants. And she's interested in stories about how they were assimilated into the American culture. Tonight, she's telling her own story of searching and achieving the American dream. Her story is called What I Learned at the Country Club. Please help me welcome Betty Ann Polaha.
Thank you. My hometown became a city because of the haves and the have-nots. The haves got there first, and they had a couple of 100 years to get settled. And one of the things they did was they built a mill, and the mill made money. So they enlarged it, and it made more money, and they enlarged it again. And as the mill became more and more profitable, it became bigger, and the houses of the haves became bigger too. And they were across the river on the north side of town, away from the smog and the dirt. But the haves had a problem. The mill got so big there weren't enough haves to work in it. By now, the haves were so rich, they didn't want those dirty jobs. They didn't want to be near the hot fires and the dust. That's when the have-nots came. And they came from Eastern Europe, from countries like Poland and Austria, Czechoslovakia, Romania, Italy, Greece. And when they got to my hometown, they settled in right next to the mill because they had to get to work somehow. They walked. The have-nots had a lot against them. They didn't know the language. They had cultural differences even among themselves. And they had financial difficulties. But they worked as hard as they could. They didn't get too far. And I'm sorry to say the haves weren't much help. And even though they didn't know the language, they managed to come up with names for themselves. The haves called the have-nots the help. And the have-nots called the haves the big shots. And time went by, and the help had children. And those children were American-born. They didn't have a language problem. The cultural differences weren't that bad. And they knew they could make money in the mill. However, they had a lot of challenges because most of them had to quit school to help their parents. And then there was the Depression and there was World War II. But they did their best. And as time went on, they had the second generation of help Americans. I was one of them. And my parents were bound and determined that I would get there. I had fewer obstacles and lots of opportunities, and I would go to college. But before that, I'm taking you to the early 60s, and I was in high school. It was summer, and I wanted a job. Even today, it's hard for teenagers to get a summer job, unless you know someone. And I knew someone. My Aunt Annie got me a job at the Southern Valley Country Club. Now, I'm telling you, folks, that country club was and still is one of the most premier country clubs on the northeast coast, but you can't compare it to anything Donald Trump built. But it did have 3 PGA-approved golf courses, tennis courts, swimming pools, clubhouses, and get this, they had a clubhouse for children ages 6 to 16, separate Moms could drop off their kids. Kids could go into the locker rooms, change into their tennis togs or their swimming suits or whatever else they wanted, run off to their lessons, meet their mom at the pool, come back, play ping pong in the rec room, watch TV. If they got hungry, they could go into the snack bar, which was straight out of Happy Days with checkerboard floor and red seats. They could order a hamburger and a milkshake, and all they had to do was sign their name. And at the end of the day, they could take a shower, put on their clothes, and wait for their moms to pick them up. Their moms might be a little late because their moms were in the main clubhouse taking a shower without children. My job title was locker girl. I worked in the girls' locker room. Specifically, I was in charge of holding the one key to all the lockers, and I helped the little kids get in and out, 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 all day long. And then when they wanted to take a shower, I made sure they had a white, fluffy towel, and then when they finished, I cleaned up after them. Now, mind you, I was glad to have this job. It was good. I got a paycheck, which most of my friends didn't. But when I think about it now, I think of that ugly uniform I had to wear. It was straight out of, excuse me, Howard Johnson's Cleaning Lady, with a lanyard around my neck with the key on it. And I had to wear that because everybody had to know that I was the help. And then I didn't get a break, not a lunch break, no break. But I got free food. And to get it, I had to wait till 1 o'clock, till after the rush. I had to wait till the locker room was empty, and then I could dash around the corner to the snack bar, write down my order, dash back to the locker room, make sure there weren't any thieves in there, wait 15 minutes. If it was empty again, dash back, get my hamburger, bring it back, and then I got to sit on a bench and eat my hamburger, which is probably cold or dried out, looking at a toilet. So really what my job was bathroom attendant, only I didn't have a tip jar. Now, it was a good job, like I said. There was another girl who worked with me, and I worked either 8 to 3 or 3 to 8, and we switched off. There were 2 locker boys who did the same thing, and there was a bunch of girls who worked in the snack bar. And they're the reason I lost my job. At the end of the summer, the boss said, "Don't bother coming back next year. We're gonna go in a new direction. We're gonna hire older people." I was a dumb kid. I was sad, but I didn't get it till my Aunt Annie clued me in. She said, "Oh, somebody made a big mistake. They put cute little help girls in that snack bar, and that attracted the big shot boys, some of which were even older than 16, to the snack bar, and there was a lot of fraternizing going on. There were even some dates that came of it. And the big shots were not happy. They were paying thousands of dollars to belong to a private club, and they didn't want their big shot boys dating help girls. Well, it wasn't fair. It wasn't fair to me, because I didn't do that. Remember, I'm locked in the locker room. And I didn't fraternize with the big shot boys. I fraternized with one of the help, one of the locker boys. And that was difficult, because the girls' locker room and the boys' locker room. But there was one job that we had to do together. We had to either put up the flag, the American flag, in the morning, or take it down in the evening. 15 minutes I had to convince this boy to like me. Ours was a patriotic courtship. I actually married him. Seriously. But now, let me just show you that it works both ways, because once he did ask me to go out, I had to tell my mother. And I knew I wasn't going to have a problem, because when I told my mother it was somebody named Polaha, she knew that was a Slovak name. She was Slovak. That would be okay. But if I went home and told my mother that I was going to go out with a big shot boy, if I said his name was Scott Vanderbilt or Richie McGovern or some name like that, maybe Donald Trump. Anyway, that just came to me. I didn't plan that. My mother would say, "What does his father do? Where do they live? What's his mother's maiden name?" It was a whole... And you see, though, that even the help didn't want or were nervous about their children fraternizing with the big shots, because we might get hurt. Well, the summer ended. Went back and finished high school and went to college. And I just turned 21 in my junior year. And the statute of limitations had expired for me working at the Southern Valley Country Club. My Aunt Annie got me a job there as a waitress in the main clubhouse. Now, the Southern Valley Country Club looks like you would think it does. Brick, ivy-covered, long French windows, a portico with white columns, a long, winding, round driveway, and a big, stately front door. There were 5 dining rooms, plus a ballroom, and they were not one of them separated by one of those folding doors that you see at the Holiday Inn where your bar mitzvah competes with somebody's wedding. No, these rooms were separated by corniced archways and French doors and stately fireplaces and winding staircases and warm wood paneling. To me, it looked like a mansion. It was a mansion, just didn't have bedrooms. Well, my aunt told me going in, she said, "Okay, you're going to get free uniforms, washed and dried for you. You're going to get paycheck plus tips, and you're going to get free food." Yeah. Well, it's about the paycheck. Got the paycheck. But the tips were split with the busboy and the bartender, and I was a dumb kid, and I never figured out the ratio. I got $7 to $9 a day, and I was happy with that because that was the money my mother let me keep. Paycheck went in the bank. And then the uniforms. It was slightly better than the one I had to wear as a locker girl. However, at that time in my life, I weighed 105 pounds soaking wet. And the club only had 2 uniforms that were extra smalls. And every time I came to the locker room, they were gone. I spent the whole summer looking like a little girl dressed up in her mother's clothes. And then the free food. Well, you could have it, but you had to come before your shift started to get it, like a half an hour before you were supposed to start work. But I did because it was food cooked by a French chef. I mean, from France. I mean, who couldn't even speak English, French chef. No offense to my mother, but it was good. One thing my Aunt Annie said is, stay on the good side of Bernadette. She was the hostess and in charge of the staff. Bernadette didn't have a good side. I mean, this woman was on us all the time. If the busboys didn't fill every glass at a table within 1 inch of the rim, she had a fit. If you took the bread and butter plate off the table before the people left, she had a fit. She had a fit about everything. And we didn't get a break, except to sit down and fold napkins or clean silverware. And she was kind of bitter. it seemed, and the older waitresses said they knew why. As the hostess, she could wear whatever she wanted. She was always in designer clothing. Her hair was beautiful. Her nails were done. Her makeup was perfect. She had nice jewelry, too. And the waitresses said that when she started at the club many, many years ago, she was pretty. And she hoped that she would catch the eye of a doctor, a lawyer, an executive, a big shot. And she did, a couple of times. But when it came time to put a ring on it, nothing happened. Because she would have had a better chance if she had been some obscure secretary who worked in another town. Then the big shot could have waltzed her into the club as his wife, and nobody would have known she used to be a help person. But nobody was going to walk into that country club with the hostess on his arm. And I think that she really wanted to help us know that we were the help, that we should remember that. We weren't even allowed to talk to the members. We were to be seen and not heard. But I also owe the woman a debt of gratitude because she was also the headmistress of my finishing school. I learned things from Bernadette that my parents didn't even know I needed to learn. On my first day of training, you could tell I wasn't a rising star. On my first day of training, she asked me to pour coffee into a cup and saucer. And I thought about it. I figured best way I could do this neatly and was to pick up the cup and saucer and pick up the silver coffee pot and bring them as close together as I could. And she went, no, never pick a cup and saucer off the table. You always pour the coffee into the cup and the cup stays on the table. She was the one who taught me that how to set a table with more than 3 pieces of silverware. She told me the knife goes on the right with the sharp side facing the plate, and the water glass is 2 inches above the knife, and the wine glass is 2 inches to the right of the water glasses, and I forget the rest. And you know, I also got to observe the big shots. I saw how the men held the chairs for the ladies. That didn't happen in my family. And I saw how they talked. I saw when a group came in, it was always man, woman, man, woman, man, woman. And I got to see what they ate. And I even got to taste it. They ate things like veal cordon bleu. And they ate veal marsala and chateaubriand and vichyssoise. Who knew there was a cold soup? And you know, it wasn't my fault if the prime rib came out more well done than they wanted. Somebody had to eat it. So there was this one day when Big Shot said to me, "Could you ask the chef if he could make me some steak tartare?" "Certainly, sir." Who's laughing? Okay. All right. I go to the French chef and I say, "Can you make this gentleman some steak tartare?" Yeah. Told you didn't speak English very well. And so I came back and chicken cordon bleu and this, that, the other thing. And this is a pile of raw hamburger on a plate. "Chef, this is cooked. It's not ready. It's not cooked." Picks up a piece of parsley, puts it on the hamburger, says, take it. Now, if you watch any of those chef shows, you know you do not talk back to the chef. I take it to the man and put it down in front of me. He goes, "This isn't right." I'm thinking, no kidding, Dick Tracy. But Run back to the chef. I said, I told you. What are you trying to do? Get me fired? And the chef chopped up a raw onion and he mixed it up and he sent it back again. I'm going, if Bernadette sees this, I'm done. Put it in front of him and he looks at it and he says, I wanted an egg with it. I'm not even thinking anymore. I'm just running back and forth. And I go back to the chef and, what? He takes his hand, makes a hole, like a divot in the meat. By the way, it was tenderloin, not hamburger. And he cracks an egg in it, a raw egg, and I take it out, and the man goes, perfect. And that is steak tartare. And I was talking to somebody, and you probably cannot get that in this day and age, raw hamburger. I learned about alcohol. At 21, I drank anything you could put in orange juice. But now I notice that before dinner you might have a whiskey sour or a Rob Roy. With dinner you would have wine, or you might want to have Old Grandad on the rocks. If it was a special occasion, you might want some champagne. And I once delivered an engagement ring in a champagne glass filled with Moët Chandon. And then after dinner, you might have creme de menthe or some other aperitif. Here's what happened with that. The rising star waitress goes out to work at a cocktail party on the patio outside that's all men in suits. All I had to do was take drink orders. I went around and to this table, and I heard, I'll have a Grandad on the rocks, I'll have a Rob Roy drying up, and I'll have a gin and tonic sunshine. And I wrote it all down. And I took it to the bartender, and he goes, what the hell's this? And I said, what? He goes, gin and tonic sunshine. I said, well, I don't know what it is. You're the bartender. He said, what did the man say exactly? He said, I'll have a gin and tonic sunshine. And that's how I got my nickname for the rest. So I had to not talk to you about my Aunt Annie. I don't even have to describe her because you know her. You've seen her in movies, you've seen her in TV shows, and she's a 4-star waitress at Cracker Barrel. She's the woman with her hand on her hip, gives as good as she gets. She can say something off color and it's hysterically funny, and she doesn't take anything from anybody. The men's grill was only for men. They came in playing after golf and had their time together. And she was in there, and she bullied them and teased them for all the years that she worked there. And she had a lot of power. Let me just tell you how much. My mother had to have an operation, feminine operation, and she was told she could not leave the hospital until she had a bowel movement. And you know how it is when somebody tells you you have to go, all of a sudden you can't go. And my mother's going ballistic. She's taking prune juice and suppositories and sits back. I can't go. I just want to go home. My Aunt Annie went to the club that day to work. And when my mother's doctor came off the golf course, she said, what the hell are you doing to my sister? Let her go the hell home, and she gets to her own bathroom. It'll be okay. This is true. The doctor went to the hospital that day and gave my mother an afternoon pass. My mother went home, and it passed. Now, here's something that I just thought of when I made this story. I never worked in the men's grill. And my mother said to me, your Aunt Annie said that the men come in, they come off the course, they're hot, they're tired, they're crabby, they use foul language, or they might say a dirty joke. And I don't want Betty Ann exposed to that. So I told them she can't work in the men's grill. Now, there was my aunt and a couple of other older waitresses, but there was another group of waitresses that came in at 8:30. They were maybe in their 30s. Their faces were a little bit hard, and they wore heavy lipstick and makeup. They looked sad, sort of. And I have to wonder if I had worked in the men's grill, I might have had a Me Too moment. After all, I was the help. Well, we finished that summer. We went on to finish college. We got married, and my husband got a job in the plant as an engineer. And he had an orientation, and he hired like 100 people at one time. And one of the activities for the orientation week was that anybody who had a wife, she would be invited to a luncheon. Guess where? The Southern Valley Country Club. And because of the time that I spent there as part of the help, I knew what to wear, I knew how to fix my hair, I knew what to say, I knew what to order, and I walked up that circular driveway and went through that big stately front door. I wasn't part of the help anymore. Thank you.